You're listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Learn more at wearelibertarians.com.
You tell me when we're live. Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 92 of East Central Indiana's favorite podcast. I'm Jeremiah Morrell. Today I'm joined by co-host Dakota Davis.
Today's episode will be featuring District Number 54 State Representative Mr. Tom Saunders. We're here going to talk to Tom about his Roving Elephants trip to Washington, D.C., constituent surveys that get sent out by your state legislators to your address.
I brought mine. Can I turn it in person, or should I mail it in?
Have to wait?
Turn it in and save your postage.
All right.
A constituent called me about that today. He wanted a stamp included.
So we will also be talking about Hoosiers voting for a balanced budget referendum, hate crimes legislation, and then some county-level issues like jails and, of course, windmills. So make sure you stick around to the end. We have a lot of really good topics today.
All right. So this show is about our lives in rural Indiana. As always, we promise our episodes are going to be a fun and an easy listen. On my left is Representative Tom Saunders. On my right is Chris Spangle. We're here for our annual physical with the leader of the show of the network. Chris is benevolent enough to give us the airtime, so we're going to give him a good 30 seconds to talk tonight and just make him sit here awkwardly otherwise.
Or I'll just talk whenever I want.
That's the way it normally works.
It's usually how it goes.
So we thank Chris for hanging out with us tonight.
We also want to thank everyone who supports us on Patreon. Those people are the life source of our little program here. You keep the lights on, you keep the internet bill paid, everything that you guys do, we appreciate you all. And tonight we will be doing a special Christmas bonus episode, and that is only going to be available for the people on Patreon. We will be live streaming to the top secret Patreon supporters group after Tom leaves, and we'll be doing a gift. Well, Tom, you can stick around too.
Tom's welcome to stay, but we don't want to make him suffer through it.
Since I don't know who they are.
No, you're good.
Nothing here is entirely safe.
As a former party hack and political flack, I'm telling you, you need to leave.
Run.
Yes, right.
So yeah, thank you all who's on there. And then today, I had to totally re-up our Amazon wish list because we have such amazing fans that they bought out the entire wish list on Amazon for us. So I had to come up with some stuff. I'm like, what do we need?
What else do you possibly want or need?
Like, what do I need?
Is this like a wedding registry?
Yeah, it's
basically
the same
is.
thing. Yeah. You go to Amazon.com and you search for Boss Hog of Liberty. You'll see the new logo we were just talking about. And on there is everything that we want to try to make this show a little bit better for the people that listen. We have had so many people send us things, people that we didn't expect it from. And thank you to everyone, like the table, all the sound tiles in here. We got all, and the most recent thing are mic flags are now on the way, so we can look even more professional.
I was just thinking that first time I did this show, we were in a bedroom in your house.
Yeah, that's right.
And you had egg crates stapled to the wall. So you've moved up quite a bit.
Yeah, we moved up in the world now.
We're getting there. Can you imagine where we'll be in a year? Hopefully right here. I'm tired of moving stuff.
Yeah, hopefully. Gosh, we're just now like getting settled, and then this week, Chris Guffey, who has done a lot of behind-the-scenes work for us, decided to take on the role of producer. And so that's why I don't have the iPad in front of me. Jeremiah's not running the soundboard or anything.
You and I just get to talk.
Because
that said,
Tom gets our undivided attention tonight.
That said, in the chat, it sounds like there's still some horrible problems and they're having trouble with the live stream audio. But,
oh, no.
But they're working on it for us, so we just get to do the show.
He's the worst producer in radio. I worked in radio for 15 years. I've never seen a debacle to a show start like this. If I weren't here, Fluffy would be in a lot of trouble. We're
but
good
you think
now,
it's fixed
though.
now?
Yeah, I think we're good.
What exactly, specifically, what did he do wrong?
Well, it's not his fault. It's Dakota's. Because
what did I do?
He didn't actually teach him how to turn on the volume. See, what you guys do something very dumb. You turn all the volume down, mute everything, just leave it alone. Just don't touch it. So the poor boy didn't know that he had to turn on the actual Mevo iPad stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
Sorry, Chris.
but the good news is that's only for the people on the live stream. When they come back and listen to the podcast, that's all just fine.
Well, it wasn't recording, so we need to restart the show. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like, what?
It's all good. So
let's get into some issues. We need to reintroduce Tom Saunders because we picked up a lot of listeners since the last time you were on, Tom. That was episode number 43.
Man.
We're on, almost 50 episodes later.
Tom has had the big accomplishment. 100% of the vote went in your favor this year.
First time ever.
First time.
During the campaign, and everybody's putting up yard signs. And
Turn his mic just a touch to him. There we go. That'll do it.
I'm thinking, should I be putting up yard signs? I don't know. I felt guilty. I did go out and do door-to-door with some people, just
supporting other candidates and doing your thing.
Yeah. But I'm honored that the public decided to give me 100% of the vote.
It worked out. It worked out all right.
After the election happened, we had there were a lot of confusion with the new voting machines and the error message it gave people whenever they chose straight ticket ballots or didn't choose straight ticket ballots. And I said, how we fix the straight ticket debacle is just add a none of the above option on every ballot. So if my solution had been on there this year, and we would have seen.
That would have included you guys too, though, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. You can definitely vote against us by picking the Democrat, the Republican, or NOTA. Yeah.
Yeah, that was confusing. I hope that they try to remedy that before the next one.
Well, what would you think about? I know Mike Delph. He left the state senate, and he was always trying to introduce ending straight ticket voting because the point of straight ticket voting goes back to our rural history. That's why the chicken is there for the Democrats, because people who were illiterate, they held up the chicken, then they'd raise their hand and vote for the Democrat. So
it was a rooster.
It was a rooster.
There's no chicken. Darren Jacobs has nothing to do with the chicken. He's a rooster only.
Democrats are all chickens to me. But would you support eliminating straight ticket voting or supporting at least getting that into committee and having a discussion about it?
I would, but it won't happen.
Why do you think?
Well, look at the coattails of President Trump. It was the Trump landslide that brought all the Republicans across the state. A lot of courthouses across the southern part of Indiana, all Democrat, but almost all of them are Republican now. A lot of that is trickled down with the coattails. So
yeah,
party people, I just don't think it would ever have a chance.
Yeah, we talked a little bit with.
I can hear myself.
Yeah, there we go. It's okay. We forgive you, Chris. We talked a little bit with Jim Lucas about it last week, and he was totally opposed to the idea. He said, "I hate the idea of telling someone that you can't do something." And I said, "Well, they can still pick all Republicans or all Democrats, or libertarians."
But the problem is that it's an incumbent support system. It really is there to encourage a lack of civic engagement. We're not a parliamentary system. We're a constitutional republic where you choose an individual, not a party. And so, to me, it's very unconstitutional and anti-First Amendment. I think.
Well, we're one of 8 states that still has it. Right?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty proud of the fact that I think I get diversity. I get people on both sides, Democrats and Republicans, and Libertarians who vote for me, and I'm pretty proud of that fact. You have to run as a party, and I got involved early at 18, so.
Right. So we talked about that a little bit on the last episode you were on with us and talked about your trip to the White House, and people can go back and listen to that. You met President Nixon, and I'm sure there's an audio tape of that somewhere.
I wondered that because when you found out that the office was bugged, surely there's an audio tape of that. So
exactly.
I need to do a Freedom of Information request to the Nixon Library.
That's funny. I didn't even think of that.
You should probably send that request into new Congressman Pence's office on his first day and have him try to figure out how to deal with it.
No, quite. You could write the Nixon Library and probably get it if it's available.
At least the transcript.
And I'm sure it is. So I had thought about that.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have to go to California and check it out.
I've been there a couple times, but never thought to ask for the transcript of the.
Do you remember exactly what day you went?
I think it was November 27th, 1969.
Yeah, so they got a pretty. They got a puncher's chance of finding it.
The office was bugged then, so.
Was it really? It would have been. Yeah, you're right.
It was voice activated, so if you're talking, it's
That would be amazing to go back to go to the Nixon Library and see if you can find yourself talking to the president.
Yeah.
We
I don't know.
I never got to talk to him in the White House. I got to talk to him. I screwed it up. They asked me to be there on a Wednesday morning, and I told them I couldn't. So they said, well, come Friday. Well, he went home to San Clemente for Thanksgiving. And then in January, he came to Indianapolis for a cities and towns meeting. I'm in class. I get paged to the office, principal's office. And when I get there, the postmaster's standing there, and he has a special delivery letter. And I was invited to meet the president in a receiving line in Indianapolis. So, but the conversation that took place in the Oval Office with his special assistant is probably taped somewhere.
Wouldn't it be funny if he was the 18 missing minutes? He accidentally.
I stepped on that button.
You bumped into something, and
he probably had a guy like producer Chris who screwed up the first couple of minutes of the audio.
Well, if you saw that demonstration of Rosemary Woods trying to demonstrate how she accidentally erased the 18 minutes, there's no way that happened.
So on episode 43, we talked to you for quite some time, but I think like 45 minutes of that episode was us introducing you as a legislator, getting to know you. Today, we really want to talk about like the things that go on in the State House and the upcoming legislative session. But first, we really want to talk about your Roving Elephants trip that you took to Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
And so we talked last year about how you had just got back from Trump's inauguration at that time. So what did you guys do this year?
Well, some of the same people went on an inaugural trip wanted to go back to the White House and see it at Christmas. So I emailed in March to see if that was possible because I didn't want to plan the trip and then they tell me no way. So we got approval in March that we could bring 125 people to Washington. So then I started putting a trip together. And we left.
Now, do you have a special direct line now with the vice president in there? Is that your hookup, or you'll give away your secrets live on the air?
Well, Congressman Pence, Vice President Pence, Governor Pence had a staffer who was with him the whole time.
Okay,
and he answers my emails. So
there you go.
Hey,
so we try.
What's his email address? Promise we won't tell anybody.
And I have, so I know how to get candy in too. So edible candy, not candy.
Oh, edibles! I thought you had to go to Minnesota or not Michigan for that. I guess.
No, these are
Minnesota.
I took some Goods candy, some Henry County's own Goods candy. Is
it's the best candy you could take.
That's thank yous, and they enjoyed it. I think I took 6 pounds with me.
Wow!
I noticed he was putting on a little weight.
Should have had a box in his lap when he was listening. Anyway.
I'm sure he'll listen to this episode. So.
But anyway, so we put the trip together, and I think this was my 18th or 19th year that we've put this group together, and we've been pretty lucky. They tell me I write a decent letter. We've met both President Bush's and President and Mrs. Carter, and Lucy Johnson met us at her dad's library in Texas, and David Eisenhower met us at his grandfather's farm in Gettysburg, and James Level, who was the Dallas detective that was handcuffed to Lee Harvey Oswald, he came and had lunch with us when we did Dallas. And
neat.
So I'm always looking for somebody. I love history, and so if I can get somebody to come and talk and you actually hear that person tell the story.
So this time the highlight, what I think is the highlight for your trip is you met President Kennedy's personal secretary.
Well, we met Jackie's personals.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I had done. We did Thomas Jefferson's home. We did James Madison's. We did Mount Vernon. We did the White House and the Vice President's office. I've done that.
Once you've seen the White House once, you've seen it 100 times.
It was the group really enjoyed. We didn't really expect to see the Vice President because George Bush's funeral was going on, and I honestly thought he was probably in Texas for the funeral. And we had a White House briefing, and during the course of the briefing, he walks in the room and surprises everybody, and that was a highlight for people. And then we went to Mount Vernon for lunch, and I had tracked down Jackie Kennedy's personal secretary. She was the second person John Kennedy hired when he was elected to the Senate in 1956.
Really?
And she stayed with him for a couple of years. Took maternity leave. When she came back part-time, she became Jackie's secretary. She was with him until Jackie moved from Georgetown to New York after the assassination. She was in Dallas with him, and to hear those stories one-on-one is really, really neat. I have a new friend now. She and I talk on the phone quite a bit.
That's fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
That is really cool.
What is the most surprising thing that you've learned from her that you were like, I can't believe that I know this? Then that's pretty cool.
Well, I talked to her day before yesterday because I left some pictures. She's in the photograph where LBJ is being sworn in.
Oh, wow.
And I left that photograph and asked her to sign it for me, and she sent it to me, and I called her to thank her. And she said, I wish somebody had asked me about him. And she said
About President Johnson.
About President Kennedy. She said because he never changed from the first time I met him as a senator till that last day in Dallas. He was still a people person. He'd go out of your way to speak to you, call you by name, and just. She wouldn't talk about any personal things. She started right off saying, I will not talk about their personal relationship.
I mean, how many times can you be asked about Marilyn?
Yeah.
Right? You know? Marilyn Monroe is who we're talking
Yes,
about.
You're too
I
young
understand.
that,
For the young one.
Yeah. Happy
Yeah.
birthday.
Google her, but not on the work internet.
Well, and if you
Yeah,
you know,
have the safe images turned on.
for somebody that likes history, if you read about Mary and Jackie's hat that she had on in Dallas that day is missing.
Oh, wow.
And they allude to the fact that Mary hasn't.
She's the last one to have had it,
Yeah.
right?
Well,
Allegedly.
it was handed to her in the hospital, and she's carrying Jackie's bag as she gets on the airplane behind Jackie as they carry the casket up. And the first day I talked to her, she said, well, I'll talk for about 15 minutes, and then you can ask questions. And I said, well, I have a question right now, Mary. And she goes, yeah.
Where's
I
the
said,
hat?
where's the hat? And she goes, oh, that's the $1 million question. She said, I handed it to Clint Hill, her Secret Service agent, for good safekeeping. And I said, well, I've met Mr. Hill, and he said, you have the hat.
Well,
Tom's investigation is going nowhere.
No offense, but Secret Service safekeeping on that particular day, not. No.
Yeah. Well, except with him, he's the only one that acted.
He was the one who climbed over the car?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We met him. I met him. It was a neat story, too. So
That's interesting.
Wow. So we talked earlier. You had 110 people that made the trip out there.
we had
and you
120 on the 110 on the buses, and then we picked up people who flew in from Florida and Texas and New York.
That is, I like to put together events and have fun and throw parties, but even for me, trying to corral 125 people in Washington D.C. sounds like I would freak out. I would flip shit.
The key, Jeremiah, is that you don't try to control them.
Yeah.
That's probably just guides people. That's where you go wrong.
Well,
Stand on this spot.
See, Tom, there's a reason I'm the one who named the show. I said you will do the show only if it's the Boss Hog of Liberty, because somebody's a little bossy sometimes.
Bossy.
We have to get there at exactly 7:07 p.m.
Right.
And you have to understand these people had to go through some pretty heavy security checks.
Oh, I bet.
I bet, yeah.
I got to tour the Pentagon in March, and we had to get pre-cleared like 2 months in advance.
Well-
The level of detail of what you had to do had to be just
Well,
ridiculous.
and my concern was at the last minute, the White House didn't have any dates. After telling me in March they did. So we went to Charlottesville Tuesday and Wednesday. And then the White House called me on Monday and said, yeah, you can do the White House Thursday morning at 9:20, which meant I had to get them up at 4 o'clock in the morning on Thursday to get from Charlottesville to D.C.
Every time you go to Washington, they make you get up earlier and earlier.
Yeah, so
You can't just show up at the White House and take a tour anymore, right?
No.
You have to have a specially arranged situation like that?
Yeah, you have to go through your congressperson to get yours. And usually 30 days out.
All right.
And it's easier to do 1 or 2 people versus 127.
I would imagine, yeah.
And then we went through security, went through the White House, out the front door. They had an hour for lunch, and then we had to get back in the line for security to get into the vice president's office. And so
I've not been in. I've walked by it every year, but I've not gone inside yet.
that's a beautiful building, and
The
most
EOB
people
or
don't
whatever
get
it
to
is,
see
yeah.
it. And there again, you can thank Jackie Kennedy because they were going to tear that building down, and they were going to tear down all the buildings around Lafayette Square.
Really?
And in the 60s, and she persuaded them to create a preservation committee, and they built a new government office building on Lafayette Square, but they kept the facades of the homes. So Dolly Madison lived there, and it's a pretty historic site in Washington.
They were going to tear down the old executive office building? Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, they were going to tear down that whole 2 blocks.
Yeah. Well, it's a neat park. Like, I guess that's north of the White House, and that road is closed. And there's a park there, and then Blair House is there, and then across the street is the Eisenhower office building.
Every time you go to Washington, there's another road closed. You get farther and farther. Because when I went that first time in '69, you just parked right there at the side door and walked right in. So
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I was talking to a guy that he was in like the 1950s, and there was a hailstorm coming, and he had a new car, and he parked his car into the north portico and went to the hotel, came back the next morning and got it. I mean, today they'd be blowing that car out.
You'd be shot before you could park the car into the
you
portico.
couldn't even get there to park it. So.
Yeah, you've got the big physical barriers and everything. That's amazing. All right, so let's transition gracefully. I got this mail in the
It's
in
the
my
least
mailbox.
graceful transition.
Yeah, I'm bowling.
He's
a
the
china
least
shop.
graceful person.
I know. He's a bull in a
I got
china
this.
shop.
I got this litter with you asking for my opinion, Tom. And it's not pre-stamped. What the hell?
No, and I told you I heard about that earlier.
So you tape it to a box of bricks.
You can also answer it online, save your postage.
That's what I did.
Yeah.
I care about the environment.
But somebody
so-
told me that if I write extra comments on there, if you can't do that online. So if you
No.
write the comments, it gets hand
It
addressed.
gets to me.
And then Tom signs you a letter back.
Yeah.
I think the thing that
That's
when
the key.
No, that is, I see everyone that has a written comment on it. And I try to answer while we're sitting there voting on bills, and there's a stack of.
Yeah, I got a nice handwritten letter back from State Senator Lysing last year.
In
I was
cursive?
I sure hope so. It's state law, or it will be someday.
I was like, oh, that was nice.
So the thing about this, there was some debate about actually doing away with this a few years ago because it's some viewed it essentially as a perk of being an elected official, getting to send free campaign literature on the state's taxpayer dime. This is actually a pretty thorough survey compared to like what I get from my representative, whom I like, so I won't call out. This actually has like a survey on it. So, are you required to put this kind of questioning on it? I mean, where do you come down on? This is useful to me as a legislator to know what the district thinks versus, some people take advantage of this.
I'm not required. I'm not required to mail those at all. There was a couple of times I've said don't mail it out. But, I mean, that's unscientific results. But I do, and we do have I'm not supposed to call it a list, but there are several questions I could choose from. Some of them are
A menu of options.
Right.
That's right. Some of them are my questions. Some of them are the caucus's questions. Some of them are policy questions. And I take it into consideration when I'm having to vote. I mean, I've often said that my district and my constituents aren't embarrassed about voicing their opinion to me, whether it's at the grocery store or the gas station or why I'm mowing my yard. So, but I do read them. And if you do write a comment on them, those get to be put in one stack. And when we send out those letters thanking you for answering, I usually try to answer whatever.
So so you said you have your menu of options of questions that you can choose, or you can like write your own. Whenever you're picking or writing these, are they examples of some of your top priorities that you want to see passed?
Not necessarily my top priorities, but priorities I think may take place in the legislature this year.
Issues you're expecting to come up.
and I'm trying to remember what questions I put on there.
Oh, you can, Harry. You can.
But I think I put something about cigarette.
Yeah, the second one is the talk. There's a
And
reference.
I pretty much know how my constituency feels about it.
Hey, you want your taxes raised? Hell no, 95%.
I would know where I stand on some issues, and then there was somewhere I just don't care about this particular issue. I want to know what my constituents think, and that might be where I would put a question.
Yeah, it would be really, because here's the thing: whenever you're in the shoes that you have to fill, you can't know everything.
No.
Whenever a bill gets proposed in the House, you can't automatically know or be even close to an expert of what this bill is talking about. So I think that having this would be a very valuable resource in that situation, besides just listening to experts that are brought in or other people that are appearing in front of the legislature to talk about it. I think that how the people that you are representing feel about that issue would be pretty invaluable, I think.
Yeah. So I'm glad to hear that you find it useful and that it is used and it is, are you the exception to this rule? Are you the norm? I mean, do a lot of people find this to be helpful that you work with?
I think I'm the norm. And, it's not unusual if we're talking about something pertaining to banking that I'll pick up the telephone and call one of our local bankers and say, how does this affect something we're doing? Or education or superintendents of schools or,
Absolutely.
There was a year or two ago I made a visit to a school and got criticized for it. And I said,
I think we heard this story the last time.
It's not unusual for me to visit a school. Don't read anything in that. I mean,
Well, I think people have a disconnect between them and the office holders that represent them. I think they'd be surprised to know how much you guys are actually out in the community talking to people, trying to get information. I mean, it isn't as I think people think, oh, they're all just sitting in a back room in a smoky room, just conspiring with each other to screw over the taxpayer. But I've never found that. In the 15 years that
they
I've
do
been
that
around,
in the open. They don't have to hide.
In the 15 years I've been around,
sometimes
you guys
during council
really,
meetings.
I mean, what are some examples where you might have had your mind changed by talking to a constituent?
Well, the same-sex marriage issue as an example. I mean, I came home and talked to a lot of people and a lot of ministers in the community, and it's the way I felt, but I didn't know if the community felt that way.
Right.
So when I actually cast that vote, I was comfortable that I was representing, and that's an issue that changed. I mean, that scope,
it built for a long time, and then it didn't, like in a 5-year period, it went from 0 to 100.
Right.
And it was done.
And you're from Marion County?
Yeah, South Side.
I can't imagine campaigning in Marion County. I mean, I would think your legislators, I mean, somebody might see Brian Bosman walk down the street, but I don't think they think about stopping Brian and telling him what they think about a cigarette tax or a new jail or something like that. And they're just not embarrassed to stop
because
him.
If you see Brian Bosman, it's because he's sitting in Nikki Blaine's or St. Elmo's.
he has a different constituency.
He does.
No, I have Speedy and Aaron Freeman, and they're being on the south side. It's a little different, but yeah, if you're in Center Township, but it's a lot less communal. What I like about coming out here is you guys have much more of a community in the rural area, and you can be more in touch.
We keep people like you
I have
out,
Tom's personal phone number.
I'm in the book. I'm probably one of the. I don't know if I shouldn't say that, but I keep a landline and my number in the book so that the constituency can get a hold of me.
All right. Well,
I mean, if I wasn't in this position, I'd get rid of that phone. It's just an added cost. It hardly ever rings.
I'm not answering that damn thing. It's either a telemarketer or a voter. I'm not talking to either of them.
Most of the time, it's a telemarketer. And,
somebody's getting pizzas later.
Are you? Last time you told a funny story about how you visited the school and you got in the doghouse with the speaker. You guys all good?
Yeah, we're fine. Yeah.
We're happy now.
You got G.W. Pierce Parkway down there, didn't you? That's $500,000. He had to sign off on that. So no, we're fine. Good. I got reappointed. I'm assistant caucus chairman. So
man,
I'm back in leadership.
Nice. So if anybody wants to find Mr. Saunders' legislative survey for 2018, it has to be turned in by the end of January.
I almost think we send them out too late. They should go out earlier than that.
And that way you got some time to think about your answers.
You guys you're filing bills or in the process of filing bills, and you're a month into the session by the time they all have to come back, right?
Yeah. Because bill filing deadline was the 10th. I think the second week of January is the last day for me to file a bill. We're each allowed 10 bills.
I thought it was 5. You guys get more?
In a long session.
We get more laws.
Yeah,
it's awful dangerous this time of the year.
It is. And the Senate always gets 10, so,
But anyway, if you want to find the legislative survey, then you can go to iga.in.gov, and you can find your legislator right there. Even if you're somewhere else across the state, you can find your legislator there, and you can find their legislative survey if they have one. So iga.in.gov is how you get there, or maybe you got it in the mail.
So a couple of the topics that are on your list are school administration. The first question is dealing with administration, possibly basically trying to get the ratio back to more teachers and possibly combining some school districts. You have the question about harvesting some more money out of cigarette tax increase.
Yeah.
There's hate crimes is something that the governor has said is a very high priority for him. So that's in there.
And the speaker has said he would support
the speaker,
that too,
I think there's already been a draft of a Senate bill.
There's 2 different drafts, I guess.
Okay.
The Senate has a draft, and then Representative Cook has a draft. Unfortunately, we don't get to see those until they're
until they come across.
Filed, and yeah.
So they come to
you
the
and
desk.
I could be having the same bill drafted. We're using the same drafter at LSA, Legislative Services, and he couldn't tell me that you were having a bill drafted. They don't share.
Really?
That seems silly.
Yeah, it does.
Medical marijuana is another one that you're going to have. That's going to be it feels like it's an issue that's matured at this point.
And you said you talked to Jim Lucas. We did talk
to Tim. He's an all of the above
Tim?
guy.
Yeah, Jim. Jim Lucas.
He was about hemp. He thought hemp was that was in the farm bill. So,
well, I voted for that the last time.
And then medical marijuana, and then the recreational marijuana as well. And then there was one that I wasn't expecting, dealing with weapons permits.
I didn't expect
that's
that
a
either.
different question I hadn't seen yet. So,
well, it was kind of funny, okay, because we talked to Jim Lucas about doing away with the weapons permit altogether and instituting constitutional carry in the state of Indiana. And then I got Tom's legislative survey, and I think it was the very last question, and it's like, should the weapons permit be a photo ID now? And I was like, wait a minute.
Well, Jim's not. I'm not going to say what Jim is. There's got to be a compromise here someplace, and I don't think it's going to swing that far in his direction, and it may not swing this far. But just because, and that's the other thing.
There's a disclaimer at the top, right?
Just because these are asked doesn't mean that this is what I'm supporting. I'm just trying to find out. These are going to be what I think are hot topic issues, and I'm wanting to know what you guys think about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think there was that was a message you sent back to me one year because there was a question about removing township government. I'm like, I got my big fat marker out.
And that was for my benefit because I knew I was going to vote against it, but I wanted to know I had enough support behind me to do it. So.
Do you ever get some of these surveys and just go, ooh, maybe we should have the police follow them?
Oh, you should read some of it. And then sometimes they're not very nice, and I'll write a response and put it in the stack, and then the next day I go, I probably shouldn't.
Lincoln actually did that.
Yeah.
He didn't. Lincoln used to write mean letters to people and then just throw it in the trash.
Yeah, I remember I hadn't been there very long, and some former legislator had gotten in trouble, and he wrote all 100 of us asking for, I forget what he wanted. I answered him. I personally answered him, and he sent me a letter that it was a canned message. And I don't know what else he said. And I wrote back, I should have done what the other 99 members did, throw the damn thing in the trash. But I answered it, And so
That just happened recently. I saw someone sent they sent their congressperson a letter about a really life and death huge issue, and they got a canned letter back. And this person, it was like somebody was dying and they needed help with something, and they got this canned letter back that seemed totally insincere, and it was just. You couldn't have done more damage with that than you would have been better off saying nothing than making them feel unheard.
And it's hard because I don't know how many legislative assistants I've had since I've been there. And I got a new one 3 weeks ago, and he calls me last night and says, hey, I got a job with Senator-elect Braun, so I'm leaving you January 2nd.
Thanks.
And I always try to educate him about how constituency service is my top priority, and this is the issues that are taking place in Henry County and Rush County and Wayne County. And then you get them all trained, and you can't blame them. My media person that I did have left me a year and a half ago. He went to work for Luke Messer. Of course, Luke's been defeated. So he was in Washington on our trip, and he's going to be a press secretary at the White House. So I said, that'll look good on your resume.
Yeah.
Just remember where you came from, So.
Guffey, you want another job? I'm looking to move a producer. Make us a deal.
That's funny. All right, speaking about issues in amongst your constituency, let's talk about the upcoming legislative session. So the first thing I have on here is that Hoosiers recently voted in the midterm elections to require the state to adopt a balanced budget. However, there was some wording in there to where that could affect the pensions of public employees. So I kind of just wanted to get your opinion on that and how you think it's going to affect any budget sessions.
The Constitution of the state always said we had to have a balanced budget. They just wanted to put it in again so it was clear.
In a different spot.
In a different spot. This basically just guarantees that the pensions that we as a state are responsible for, state employees, school teachers, that money's there, and we're not using it for anything else. I know before the election it was we're going to try to take their pensions away from them. That's not my intention, and if that's the wording and that's what happens, it'll be a vote I'll vote against. But I think it was just to protect. You hear about these other states, Illinois. They can't fund the pensions that they've been collecting money on for years when a school teacher retires. So
that's where one of these days we just need to get out of the pension business.
We're just trying to, but You work, they want a pension. You
Well, I know. I'm just saying, like at some point, whether it's a policy that we say, okay, from here on out, we'll fund the pensions, take care of the obligations we have. Then 30 years from now, the whole workforce doesn't have one to
anybody hired after 2018. Yeah.
It's no pension.
That's why most businesses have gone to a 401k match or the like.
That's what happened with Lily's. My grandfather has a pension, but my brother-in-law, who works for Lily's as well, does not. He has a 401k.
Well, yeah, that's.
And you may see that down the road, but I haven't heard that discussed.
Right. I'm just talking.
But
to my
we've got
saying,
2 or 3 different.
One of these days.
I don't think that it's right. Okay, so yeah, we're critical about government pensions, right? However, I don't think that it would be right for the government to try to correct its own shortfalls by taking money that they promised to a person for retirement away from them. Like, that's not right at the same time.
And I agree.
You know,
I
know
agree.
you agree.
I agree with that. But the problem is that the pension crisis across all Western countries is getting so bad that in 50 years it's expected to be like 3 times larger than what our current world economy is right now. So there may be a situation where if we don't start saying anybody hired after this date gets a 401k not a pension, we may run out of money at some point. I think there's a lot of situations where,
especially in states that don't have their spending together, like
Illinois. Yeah.
I mean, we're fortunate in Indiana because we have competent legislators that are going to at least budget efficiently.
Right.
Well, when I first was elected legislature, we were having to put several $100,000 a budget session in to pay back pensions we'd borrowed, and that's done now. So we don't.
After Daniels, I assume that was a transition between Kernan and Daniels.
We were talking. I remember Frank O'Bannon was governor. We were going to give everybody $50. Instead, we had our excess money, and the Governor Daniels wanted to give everybody $50. And I remember going to Walmart and standing outside the door asking people if they wanted permanent property tax correction or you wanted your $50 back. And, I looked at a lady's grocery cart and I said, you bought Tide and laundry detergent. You just spent your $50. It's gone tomorrow. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's a buzzing sound, but hopefully it's not.
I'm losing.
That's probably.
Check
Jeremiah.
1 2. Check 1 2. Is that a little
I
bit?
got you now.
Yeah.
All right.
There we
That's
go.
We look pretty professional, but we still have things duct taped underneath the table.
We're not Johnny Carson.
There's not even duct tape; it's just painter's tape.
Someday we'll have.
I'll buy
we'll have
your
real
roll of duct tape.
Hey, man,
I need to put
Is
that on the
your
Amazon wish list.
Yeah.
All right, let's move
honestly,
on.
as far as equipment goes to this thing, the hardest thing to get right is headphones. That is the most difficult part of the entire process is getting a good headphones.
We've gone through.
It's actually not. You just have to spend some money, Jeremiah.
We've gone through 3 headphone amps.
See,
it's been bad.
Jer is married to someone that I have affectionately nicknamed Purse String Potter or Penny Pinching Potter. So he's not allowed to spend too much money.
Fiscally responsible in my house, I'll tell you that.
All right, let's move on to hate crimes legislation. Government Holcomb said that Indiana is way past due for hate crimes legislation. That's because of some recent graffiti that showed up at a synagogue in Carmel, Indiana. And also State Senator Ron Alting, like we just touched on it a little bit, Republican from Lafayette. He released a draft of Senate Bill number 12, and it will call for judges to review the motivations for a crime and then be able to issue harsher punishments. In your opinion, is that something that needs to happen?
Well, I kind of changed my opinion on this, too, when I had some people come visit. I always thought, it's up to the judge, let him make the decision. But in this day and age, when you're being punished or hurt or killed because of your religious or your sexual preference or something, I think we probably should join the other states in looking at hate crime legislation.
We talked to, I think we touched, no, we didn't talk about it with Jim Lucas, but he put a post on Facebook and he said the state constitution guarantees that all people and all punishments are equal. And if we issue harsher punishments because of something done against a certain group of people, does that go against the state constitution? Which,
I'm not a lawyer. That'd be up to the judge. But
you can.
he was also on Facebook last week smoking pot out in
That's one of my favorite quotes that ever came from this podcast is that Jim Lucas was on the show, and Jim Lucas said, "It's impossible to overdose from marijuana because I just tried."
How much of the hate crimes legislation ties into the Indianapolis and Purdue tech business? I look at this and I see a lot of the influence of Salesforce, for instance, and their very outspoken CEO. I find this to be a counter reaction to RFRA and trying to repair some of the damage with the conventions. $60 million was lost in convention business there. Is it, you're in the know, is my hypothesis right? Is there a bit of the hate crimes legislation that is geared towards people outside of the state when they're looking to bring business here?
I believe so. I don't know that I'm so much in the know. I just kind of hang around.
Well, you're in leadership.
I am, but we haven't had one of those meetings yet.
More than Guffey, okay?
More than Guffey. I mean, I was on, I voted opposite the way the governor wanted us to vote on that issue. I remember my wife and I were in French Lick when he was on ABC, and they were asking that question about his Indiana. And he's not answering, and I'm jumping up and down on the bed going, just say no. So, we look at that when we're trying to coerce people to come to Indiana to do business. And, we got to have a good workforce. We have to have an inviting work development and environment. So
damn the luck, that was the day everybody watched George Stephanopoulos. It normally didn't happen, but that was the day everybody decided they were going to watch the governor.
My wife and them were going. I said, "You guys go on to breakfast. I want to watch this." And thank goodness my granddaughter wasn't in the room. I actually was jumping up and down on the bed going, "Just say no."
But yeah, I have a little note in here that says similar bills have always been tried in the state house, and they've always been shot down.
But you didn't have the support of the governor and the
exactly.
Speaker of the House, and I don't know how the new Senate pro tem feels, but I would say it has.
That's a very, very important point.
It has, because he's the guy that assigns it to a committee and kind of advises the committee chair if it's going to get a hearing or not. So they've been pretty vocal. I think it probably has a good chance of passing this year.
All right.
Who is the new Senate pro tem? I've not checked yet.
Rod Bray from Martinsville.
Morgan County. There's all this power out of Morgan County.
Yeah. It's palpable. Well, it's like a little cauldron of power.
Where my wife is from Morgan County. So
they have no zoning in Morgan County. You aware of that?
Really?
Yeah.
It just feels freer down there.
They have the best fireworks show in the state.
More free.
Yeah.
It's more free, not freer. All right, let's speaking about Morgan County, let's go to some of the issues that are affecting the county level that we think could actually have an effect come from the state house. I have right here State Senator Phil Boots, who is a Republican, also wants to do away with these 4 mile, they're called home rule laws, and they are zoning laws that have been implemented in different towns across the state. That basically restrict wind farms, but they can restrict anything. And they're out 4 miles outside of the town limits. He wants to restrict that and say, you are a town, you can legislate for your town, not the county. And almost all the little incorporated towns in Henry County have come up with similar
because they didn't think the county government was looking out for them.
We're up to double digits now of the towns.
Yeah, and I honestly think this is in response to Henry County.
Oh, I'm convinced it is.
And
I think
this law has been in effect since 1980, so it's not anything that's brand new.
Two of them are in the Crawfordsville area, I think, have passed it.
Which is in his district now.
So that's why he's carrying it. And then I guess there are at least 10 or 11 Henry County towns. Those communities that have town governments have done that.
When a couple of those communities enacted that, I told them, I said, don't be surprised if you're not sued, because I didn't think Farm Bureau was going to sit back and take this without some kind of a fight. And I assume that's where that language, I assume they went to Senator Boots and said, hey, is 4 miles too much? Maybe. But in Henry County's case, and this is where I told you I know the political answer and I know the truthful answer. The voters of this county let it be known they weren't happy with the direction our leadership was taking us. And they replaced them.
Yep.
but they're still not listening to them. And so the local communities, somebody informed them of this particular law, and they enacted it, trying to protect their boundaries.
So and it's going to be, Henry County is going to become a test case is what's going to happen. This is going to be, I think there's, from the outside looking in, I don't have any, I just have from a distance knowledge. I'm not in any of these boards. I'm not a party to the lawsuits, but I think you're going to find Henry County is going to probably be case law for this. I don't know if this bill has any chance to go anywhere in the General Assembly this cycle or not. I don't know.
I would say it probably does because, I mean, there's 5 large power groups that control the general or have a lot of input in the General Assembly: Chamber of Commerce, Manufacturers Association, State Realtors, Farm Bureau, and I can't remember who the 5th one is. But they,
probably the cold beer people that say we can only have it for 8 hours a day.
And I don't know if we're going to do anything with that this year.
And we do have the wind company Apex, I believe, was the wind company that was looking at going in southern Henry County and was going to be doing the wind farm down there. They have said that they're not interested
but
anymore.
It's my understanding.
They're done, right?
Yeah, that's what I understand. I read that, but I also understand that the commissioners yesterday in their commissioners meeting approved some agreements.
Voted on
for
5
the
agreements.
The northern
which
farm.
There again, the vote. You know this. You run as a libertarian for an independent candidate to get over 8,000 votes. That's saying something. I mean,
it really is.
But nobody's listening, and that's the reason these local communities did this. They didn't think that their local government was looking out to protect their best interest, and they probably will become a test case.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with it because
we've already split this county 3 ways.
Like you said, the commissioners voted on 5 agreements with Calpine, which is the group that's going to be establishing wind
in the northern part. So why didn't they just say the other night, "Hey, we're done. The people in Henry County have voiced their opinion. They don't want wind. Thanks, but no thanks."
It'll be crazy if it goes forward because whenever we were running Jeremiah's campaign, we were looking at everything. We didn't have the votes for an abatement here, no matter who won the county council, right? And so the entire campaign team is looking at all across the state of Indiana and the windmills that have been put in, and it's like there's never been a wind farm put in without an abatement. It's never happened before. So it was like maybe it's not going to be a threat. And I mean, they're still pushing forward, and they know they don't have the votes on the council to get an abatement. So it's what in the world's going on here?
I almost think they want to do it just to prove they can.
That's what I said. It's like they're going for it just out of spite at this point.
The bully syndrome that seems to be so popular right now. That's the truthful answer, not the political answer.
Well, we appreciate that very much. You got 100% of the vote. You're pretty safe right now, Tom. You still got to get commission-approved use as well, and I think that's going to be
but
that's going to be
some of those
night.
boards are stacked in their favor too.
Yeah, you can count votes ahead of time, but I just I was very surprised when they didn't locate an asphalt plant here out of a planning commission and then a commissioners meeting. I still think those are going to be must-attend meetings to watch and see what happens. But that's the rubber meets the road.
But some of those people have been replaced since then, right?
Some.
Yeah, so that and you can count the votes. If you count the votes, it's
close.
It's close.
It's close either way.
Like I've told the guys, when Fox 59 comes up to me in the State House and sticks a microphone in my face and wants to know if my county officials are crooks, and I'm saying, hey, I'm not saying anybody did anything wrong, but they just have to watch the perception. It's like we were talking earlier about somebody that appoints herself to a board by a vote. That's it may be legal, but it just doesn't look right.
It just seems.
Distasteful. All I want is for Main Street to be paved in Newcastle. One of these days, I want the county or the
can't
state.
Be the county. No.
I want the state to finally get the matching funds for the city, and the city to fill out the stupid paperwork right, so that NDOT can give them money so we get Main Street paved.
We were on the
get there.
Main
someday.
or Broad.
Well, Broad's done.
Yeah.
Main Street, the city's been trying to find matching money for all these city streets for ages. If they can get the streets paved and the trash picked up, people are going to be a lot happier.
I voted for gas tax increase because that was the biggest issue that was everything on my survey. That was always the top complaint at the bottom. Somebody'd write in about.
Remember to put something on about the roads on there. It doesn't feel like a survey if you don't survey about the roads.
Well, but we've got the money. I mean, and we've given the locals the ability to get it. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, Newcastle hasn't.
We hear a lot of complaints about that from Aaron Dickin. Whenever he's
I
just
hear
like,
that from Aaron too.
Yeah, I'm sure you do.
Sounds like he's a whiner.
He cares a lot.
He
really does.
he's
a great city councilman.
He's a young Tom Saunders, I think.
I think he would appreciate that.
Now-
Really.
now, do we have-
I meant that in the nicest way.
Do we have to wait on Aaron to be our state representative to get I-70 to 3 lanes between here and Indy, or is it something Tom can take care of for us?
Well, I've been.
You're on the all-powerful committee.
I am on roads and transportation, and when I had a meeting with the governor, I took some people in April. I think the biggest thing we could do for economic development in this part of the state is to make State Road 3 4-lane between 74 and 70. But unfortunately, those people out in Marion County and Hamilton County, they seem to get more road funding than we do. Not more road funding, more road miles than we do. So
Yeah, we got more roads. Yeah, there's a road every time you turn around. We got a road.
yeah.
Henry County has is
we have 800 miles of what used to be paved roads.
it's like the top 10% or something in the state, right?
But then I wonder, and I had a guy draw it to my attention, one of the newest roads we got is 300 South. And why they didn't put a northbound turn lane there when
I
they
hate
built that.
I work right off of there. Hate it.
And so now I got to figure out, is that a state responsibility or a county responsibility? And when we built that road, we built it with federal funds. That's why we got the wide berms and the wide ditches. And we don't really need that. We just need another.
Yeah, we just
another
need a turn lane.
So,
Don't care about the ditch.
Somebody said we posted an advertisement you're going to come on, and they wanted us to ask about 300 South and 103 getting a stoplight out there. And I know it's been studied, and there's flashers, and
not going to happen, unfortunately.
You need more traffic, right?
You need more traffic and more accidents. Unfortunately, they do look at the number of accidents.
You and I are going to go buy some beaters, and we'll just sacrifice one a week until Aaron Dickin drops us off our insurance.
The Boss Hog of Liberty Derby, the figure 8 right outside the.
There was another crash out there this week. That's Jeremiah in the ditch again.
I was trying to think. I had a meeting with NDOT last week. I took Jeff Ray was having some trouble on the rails to trails, and I took him to Greenfield, and we met about that. And then while I was in there, I hit him up for a couple other things. I can't remember what it was, but. Oh, there's a place in Knightstown there as you come off of 109. I don't know if I think the city sewer or something's collapsing underneath it, and there's a big hole there. And they need to get that fixed.
I know, from my construction industry experiences, I know that Knightstown just had their wastewater treatment plant bid last week. So
they did what?
Sewers and wastewater treatment plants. Knightstown's getting some improvements.
Oh, okay.
That's underway.
Well, I represent what? 4 exchanges on I-70 and have the most unimproved exchanges in the state. So.
You touched on something there a little bit that I don't think is talked a lot about, and I'd be interested in your perspective. So I ran the Libertarian State Party from 08 to 12, and there was always this tension between the Marion County Party and all the other parties, especially the further north you got, the more tension there was. Oh, well, they get more attention, or they get more this, or they get more that. And I've been surprised over the last few years as I've watched more of the legislature to see that's part of the legislature too.
Yeah,
there's a real.
Tom and Mike Speedy are probably going to have a duel by 2020.
I have been surprised to see.
I got money on my rep.
People who are in your part of the state or in the north or the south or any rural county really feels some sort of, I don't know if antipathy, that may be too strong of a word, towards Marion County and Indianapolis specifically, and there's always the sense that they get whatever they want, and we're
bunch of brats.
But that's not. I mean, if you live in Indianapolis, you have a totally different perspective. You know, I think so. How much of that tension is real between the state capital? You know, they want to throw billions of dollars at stadiums and conventions, and and business development, and it is important to have like a sales force driving some of that growth, but. How much of that is at the expense of a rural county like Henry County?
Well, that's our capital city. It's a beautiful city, and I want to do whatever I can to help draw people there. But we live here. And one of the examples is you see all the pickup trucks on the road. I've always complained about I'm on roads and transportation. A pickup truck license, that money goes to the state. It doesn't get generated back to the locals for road funding, where my passenger vehicle does. And that's because when the formula was figured in the 60s, only us people in rural Indiana drove pickup trucks. And if we were going to change that, then Marion County wanted it figured on lane miles because they have more lane miles than we have. And I'm asked to vote for tax increases to fund the Pacers and the Colts and
Yeah,
You know,
thanks for that, by the way.
Yeah, but on the other hand, and that was under Governor Daniels, and they allowed the donut areas to increase their food and beverage tax, and they could spend it any way they wanted to.
Right.
I can't spend our local food and beverage tax that way.
You can't even get one for Rushville.
I can't even get one for Rushville. So, I mean, Henry County's had a food and beverage tax
since the 80s.
Yeah, 35 years, and it's good for Henry County. But why isn't it saying the
Allegedly,
same thing?
If you believe in taxes.
Yeah, but I mean, they do some good. You got to have the money. But if it's good for Henry County or it's eligible for Henry County, why isn't it eligible for Rush County? Why do they have to come to the legislature and kiss somebody's ring to get it when everybody in Marion County and the surrounding donut areas?
Well,
they're just trying to keep Mayor Pavey down.
Let me give you kind of what I'm hearing.
I think he's doing
listener.
a good job, though.
If I'm your average listener, I'm sitting here going, well, what do you want more of my money for? What are you actually going to use it for? And I don't think people really understand how a lot of state and local taxes work because they just see massive amounts of waste on the federal level, and they don't realize that there's a difference between your county. But I mean, so what is the importance of all of these different types of taxes that you're talking about?
Well, first of all, for service. If this building catches on fire, you expect the fire truck to come here, or you want in Henry County we have free ambulance service. You want the ambulance to show up.
We've got a bucket brigade arranged just in case.
But I was in a county today that's being forced to build a new jail, $50 million, and the federal court said they had to hire 22 new jailers.
Terre Haute.
Yeah.
Hey man, I read the news. Plus you told me where you were this morning.
They have to be, and I don't think we're far from that.
Speaking about jails, that's one other county issue.
Anyway,
that
services. We got to have money for this. And then my other point of view is everybody should pay for those services. Tom Saunders doesn't want to tax your house of worship, but if you have a not-for-profit that owns an apartment building or a shopping center, they should pay for at least the protection that property gets.
Well, it's sort of like the Amazon argument that why should Amazon get to sell tax-free stuff when brick and mortar doesn't get to? It's fundamentally unfair. Yeah, we don't want to pay more taxes, but it also there has to be some fairness in the actual formulations.
And I've harped that for 20-some years, and they keep saying, "Oh, we can't talk about it, Tom." But I've gotten reelected, and I've always talked about it. So, and matter of fact, I have a bill this session to look at it again. So.
All right, let's talk about county jails for a minute because that was one of the biggest issues, that and wind, during the recent county elections was our county jail is crumbling. It's in really bad shape. We have an active lawsuit going on right now, and the same judge that is looking at our lawsuit just ordered another county that they had to construct a new jail now. There was that House Bill 1263, which was passed in 2018. It allows counties to raise another tax,
which we did,
to construct a new.
You passed that. Henry County hasn't enacted it.
Yeah,
right. But Vigo County did.
Right.
That was where some of their funding came from.
Or there's other solutions that have been looked at, like regional jails to help lessen the burden of level 5 felonies or level 6 felonies. Sorry. That are being held in the county jails. Do you think regional jail is a actual solution that could be proposed by the state?
I think it's a situation outside the box we need to look at, and I'm going to give Henry County credit for being willing to do that. And the sheriff not having a turf battle. We've had 2 meetings, not official meetings. One meeting at the State House, and we had a meeting out at GO Tuesday with some representatives from Madison County who also have to build a new jail. I will say that Henry County sat down with Rush County about a regional jail, but Rush County wasn't interested.
And they have their own jail project underway.
It's out of the ground, so it's too late.
They're cooked. It sounds like Delaware County is already well down the path with one. Yeah. But so your potential partners for Henry County would be Madison or Hancock, I guess. Hancock had a ballot referendum that failed.
And Hancock has been invited to participate, and at this point they've chosen not to. Fayette County needs a new jail, or more space. And I'm not going to quote figures because I'll get them wrong, but let's say our jail was built to hold 120 inmates, and we got 280 inmates now.
I'm pretty close.
And we got to do something. And I think they told me yesterday, probably by the middle of January, the court will decide what we're doing. We're discussing other opportunities. Regional jail, we build one on a county line somewhere. Or what about contracting with GEO that they build a facility, and we just pay them to take our offenders. I mean,
one of the issues
or somebody.
The processes I thought is, you probably have unused space in the GEO facility, the old state facility on the north side of Newcastle now, where you could potentially contract with them and have overflow there, or one of the other state facilities.
I don't think we did. No, there isn't.
Okay.
What we talked about is GEO or some private company basically building a structure, and either lease it back to us or they take charge of staffing it in. I mean, what are we talking? $30 million for a jail?
Yeah.
And that's not staffing. That's just building the brick and mortar. And can Henry County afford that? So I'm going to commend the counties, both counties, for looking at alternative ways to try to save those tax dollars that they really don't want to take out of your pocket. But sometimes they have no.
Well, that's what I contend is that we won't mean to do it, but we'll have another income tax passed. We did it with public safety, and now potentially you'll have that with the jail. And it won't be you, but 20 years down the line, when that's supposed to sunset, the adjustment will come in and say, "Oh well, if you had it in place, you can keep it, and choose what you." It'll be like the food and beverage tax for Hancock County, right? Yeah. You do what you want with it after.
Hancock doesn't have food and beverage.
Morgan does.
Hancock has one. They wanted to increase theirs.
Yeah. Of course they did. They want 12%.
They wanted to build a new 4-H facility in Park, and Rush County was in that grouping to get approved when those people from Hancock County came to a Ways and Means meeting, and they just pulled them all off the table then. So,
was that the year they just wanted to see stuff die? Bills were dying left and right.
No, I think they actually wanted that to happen. If you wanted to see you should watch
2 years ago.
You should watch last year's Signy Die in the Senate if you want to see a good comedy show.
They were honoring people instead of voting on things, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
All right. So let's hear about. You've got 10 bills that you get to author this year. You want to give us the cliff notes?
You was going to ask.
You don't have to list all 10 because you might leave one out. But
one
the highlights.
of them has to do with township firefighting. There's no consistency across the state on how those are funded. We need to look at that, how these fire departments are funded. They shouldn't be spending their time having chicken noodle dinners trying to raise enough money to buy gasoline for the fire trucks. So that's one.
Stony Creek had to do a lot of chicken dinners to build their new facility.
They did, and the county had to be the grant provider, and they've got a nice facility there. And, you don't want to talk about consolidation, but, I mean, Henry County, I think their problem is they don't have enough people to man the departments during the day. So are we going to have to become a paid department? I mean, those are things that have to be looked at. And one of my bills studies that. I have a bill that talks about studying taxation and pilots, which is payments in lieu of taxes for property. I was going to write these down today. I did reintroduce a bill I had on wind and conflict of interest from last year because there was some.
Almost all those guys are voted out by now.
Well, not necessarily for them, but for future references.
I forgot to mention that you did push for that big time last year, and you pushed for there needed to be a lot more transparency, just in general.
It's not direct.
It wasn't just a wind, right?
No, it's not everything. And my bill was. I had introduced the bill the year before, and it didn't get anywhere, so I rewrote it, and it went. This bill got assigned to local government. It was going to get a hearing, and then the chairman of utilities, he resurrected my bill from the year before and gave it to another legislator, and it was sent to his committee. It was scheduled for a hearing. They had a 2-hour hearing on it. There was a couple hundred people showed up. He said, I'm not going to take a vote on this bill today because Tom's got another issue in local government. I'm going to annex it into this bill. We'll take a vote in 2 weeks. He goes to the local government chair and says, don't hear Tom's bill. I'm going to amend it into my bill. So the local government chair kills my bill, and then nothing ever happened with the other bill. Oh. Thank goodness that legislator's gone.
I was going to say you're going to go rip some people up. Right?
Well, I mean, I just reintroduced it to see what happens, and it's everybody takes it, and I'm addressing it. Our guys, I'm not. It's a situation that happens. I'm not allowed to vote on anything at the legislature that I might be perceived as a conflict of interest or making revenue off of, and I'm just trying to pass that along.
Even the playing field for the people that are in the counties too. Yeah, I get that for sure. All right.
I think
You
we're
ready
through
for-
the list.
Yeah, I'm ready for final thoughts. How about you?
All right, let's do it. We'll start with Chris Spangle on my right, and we'll go to Tom, and then we'll work our way around the room.
You know, libertarians were often accused of stealing votes, Tom. So I want to know, how do you feel about stealing all of Rex Bell's votes?
Well, I'm pretty proud of the fact that when Rex was running for governor and he was in the hospital and he wanted to vote very badly and the county clerk told him no.
Rex and I, or Tom and I were on the phone.
There was
number
a
of
phone
times.
call made to me, and I arranged it so I didn't steal Rex's vote. I let him vote for himself.
I'm just teasing.
No, I know you are, and the Bells are a nice family. I think I've ran against
Half of them,
all
probably.
of them, so except for Mrs. Bell, I've run against.
Well, if you
everyone.
move to Hagerstown and run for judge, I'm sure you can run against her too.
She's vicious.
She's undefeated, though.
Rex is very nice, but Susan,
I've seen Susan in action. She was not happy with me one day.
she'll make you pay fines and pennies. It's
But in this line of work, you have to be able to forgive and forget.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to live with the guy you look at in the mirror every morning. And as I said earlier, I'm honored that the people of this district have put their trust in me for as many years as they have. I don't know where those years have gone, and I've tried to represent them to the best of my ability. And sometimes we agree, and sometimes we don't. And there's a couple of votes I'd like to take back, but you can't do that. So
It's
you
a
guys
republic,
didn't
not
ask
a
me about
democracy.
time. It's not going to change.
Oh, well, okay. All right. Are we staying on Central Time, Eastern Time? What are you doing?
I think we'll stay right exactly where we're at.
if
We're going to drive right down 31. 31 East is Eastern Time, and West is... So the State House will be on Central Time, and,
no,
I don't
and
know
Newcastle will be on Eastern
If
Time.
I don't know if I told you this story. When I ran for property taxes. So one day I was up in northern Indiana and took Otis Bowen, former governor, up to lunch, and we talked about property taxes. The next week I was going to be in southern Indiana. I called Governor Whitcomb and asked if I could stop by his house and take him out to lunch. And he said, nope. He said, there's no fit place to eat lunch in Rome. You come to my house and I'll have it for you. He said, be here at noon. It's 5 hours down to Rome, Indiana in Perry County. And I pulled into Rome, population 37. That's the first county seat, and there's a courthouse there. It looks a lot like the state capitol in Corydon. There's a big White House with pillars, and that's where Governor Whitcomb lived with his significant other. I pulled up to their door at noon. They were sitting on the front porch. He had his pajamas on, and she didn't have any shoes on. And I got out and introduced myself, and they both excused herself, went in and got dressed, and he and I sat on the porch and visited, and she had a nice lunch for us, and we're in there, and she said, you got here an hour earlier than you were expecting. And I said, you said noon. She says, honey, we're on slow time. And the governor had a spoon to his mouth, and he said, you can blame your man Mitch for that. I vetoed that damn bill when I was governor.
coming from radio, it was just the worst nightmare you can imagine, and dealing with people from, LA or New York, they're like, what time are you on again? It's just totally different now. People know we're on. They still will kind of, there's ghosts of what time are you on, but it's not like it was. Things run efficiently. It was the right decision. Moving it to Central Time, I think, is crazy. Like, having it get dark here between 4 and 4:30 is
That was horrible. We went down to Tennessee for Thanksgiving, and it was like, man, I'm starting to get tired. It's only 4:45.
I have
the moon and stars are out.
I've had several state legislators when I've posted about it say, over my dead body will we be on Central Time?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and unfortunately, it's in response to those children that got killed in the bus accident, but it would still be dark. It doesn't matter. So I think we're where we're going to be.
It's frustrating. And to address that issue, maybe the time school starts should change, right? Maybe you push it back an hour.
Maybe they change their time.
Exactly.
Honestly, an hour extra for sleep would be so good for kids.
It would be
the way that they learn.
Incredibly beneficial.
Yeah. We should introduce a bill to that.
Let's do it.
Okay, so
Right now.
Let's kill one of yours, and we'll write the Tom
I'll help
Saunders.
you
You take
Right.
the preamble, I'll take the conclusion.
I'll help you write 2 bills. I'll help you write school starting later. I'll also help you write a bill to end straight ticket voting.
I don't think it'll get assigned to a committee. It get assigned to a committee, but I doubt it got a
We
hearing.
can try.
Well, we can try. Yeah,
That's all we can do.
Or we just take off the party labels. If we can't do straight ticket voting, we'll just take off party labels and see how it all goes.
But
Just give my NOTA idea.
when
try.
I voted that first time and it flipped up and said that had made a mistake, and I flipped back and went to the next. No, I didn't, and then but I could see how that would.
It drove.
I'm
up
a party
straight
chairman,
tickets.
and it threw me off.
It's all fun and games till you accidentally vote for the Democrats, Saunders.
Well, who was I talking to? There's a town somewhere that Fortville, I think they had a town election, and the Republican didn't win because the straight party votes didn't count for him, and they were supposed to go to court this week and decide whether that was. So,
It's ridiculous.
It'd just be better if you took it off, and that excuse
Well,
is
we
gone.
did that for council. I don't know.
At large only.
Yeah, at large.
Yeah.
We're making progress. Just a little bit of freedom.
Well,
We're
Representative
incremental.
Richardson, who took
You
care
know,
of that, she retired.
Yeah, we can only
so,
trust
yeah.
you guys so much, honestly.
You still
see
have
how
to
it
have a
goes.
photo ID to vote, though.
Soon, maybe you can take your gun permit.
Well, that would be a government issued permit. So yes,
I learned
you can.
I learned after I moved that if I want to get my address changed on my driver's license, if my address is correct on my gun permit, I can take it, and there is an alternate form of identification. So
That's one of the identifications they'll accept.
yeah, it is. I didn't know that.
All right, Chris, you were doing your final thoughts.
I'm sorry.
Promote yourself.
WeAreLibertarians.com. You can check us out there. We're one of the largest libertarian podcasts.
Their
in the world.
website
We
is
talk-
much better than ours.
Yes.
You're now you conceded Thursdays to us. You're now a Tuesday night show primarily.
We're primarily on. We didn't concede to you. No, there were other issues at play there. But we talk about politics, culture. It's not very partisan. It's not a Libertarian Party podcast like some. It is much more about the general conversation. You give us a couple hours a week, we'll make you sound smarter when you're talking with your friends.
It's been a great show recently. You guys have the new daily shows coming out.
Yep.
With a whole host of characters.
The great Hody Johns is
Hody-
watching right now.
Hody's fantastic.
Yep.
Hody's every episode that he's on, and Paul Copeland, Sarah Brady Wagner.
Yep.
All of them are great. They all do a great job.
A lot of new people. I don't trust them.
Stone is coming up. Well, get ready. You shouldn't cancel your plans and come to the dinner on the 5th because we're going.
My
to have,
birthday, man.
We're going to have a whole
Have
bunch.
cake.
Yeah, we'll have a cake. There will be 30 of your best friends there, all new co-hosts that we're going to start bringing onto the network. And oh boy, do we have big plans for 2019. So we're going to take over the world for libertarianism. So get ready, Tom.
Oh, Tom's almost ready to retire. And join us anyway.
He's like, bring it on.
I looked like him when I started.
I know. I was
Yeah.
I was in your sweatshirt. I remember the times.
Yeah.
Dakota looks. We're not going to get into it in front of the honorable right gentleman from
Louisville.
From Louisville. But Dakota looks like he's out of a catalog tonight.
I've been waiting for someone to comment on the turtleneck so that I could just say it's high fashion.
We're gonna comment on the bonus show. That's
Okay.
we'll comment. There'll be
Good.
comments.
I've been waiting for it all night, and
I
none
just
of you,
ignored the fact that
none
he
of
dressed
you
like
have
Chase.
delivered.
Don't do that post.
I'm very weak-wristed.
Jeremiah?
No, we're going around the room.
No. I run the network.
He's the big host.
I can have you removed. He is the big host.
I texted Dakota and I go, where does Jeremiah park? I'm parking in his spot.
You did.
Because I
You
got
did
here an
park in my
hour early,
space.
yeah.
Excellent. Tom, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for the invitation, as always.
Follow you on Facebook on the Representative Tom Saunders page.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of it, but when I see something interesting, I post it.
There we go. There were some
I
pictures
do well
from-
to keep up my emails. It's,
You were at your granddaughter's
went to my
Christmas
granddaughter's
event
Christmas
that
party
was on.
I stood up Farm Bureau in Rush County last night to do that. So,
Well, you might be sending them a message.
I
I don't
posted them so they would know I didn't just stand them up.
know. Casey Conley. I don't remember her married name now, but she's probably you probably made her list.
Yeah, probably.
She's
I'm
probably-
already on their list, I'm afraid.
All right. Well, thank you very much. We're looking forward to. I'm sure I'll run across you a time or two at the State House along the way.
Thank you.
So I know we normally have lunch together during the for the Purdue University Ag Luncheon.
Carrot?
So the Carrot Group.
We've already
So
got a date for that, January. Is it 27th?
it's on my calendar. I don't know. You have to take the day off work, but we'll
Just
have
a
lunch.
lunch.
It's just a lunch, yeah. And we come over and we talk about whatever the priorities of the school are that day. All right, Dakota.
All right, I guess my final thoughts, as always, are thank you to the people who support us on Patreon. You guys are the greatest. If you want to support us on Patreon as well, then you can head to patreon.com, which is patreon.com/Boss Hog of Liberty. You get all kinds of bonus content, a lot of cool stuff. if you join right now, then we can add you to the super secret Facebook group. And that is where you will see the live stream and the video of Jeremiah and I exchanging gifts, also opening a present from landlord Mike Broyles. And
I got you a gift as well.
Our year in review. Well, I said we're exchanging gifts.
And they didn't get me anything.
No.
I gave them a show, and I get nothing. This is the kind of respect I get, Tom. It's just ridiculous.
Welcome to my world.
I know. It's like I'm
we
an
got
elected
you
official.
a studio in Eastern Indiana.
No benefit to me whatsoever.
Okay, whatever.
I have to drive 475 minutes out to this place.
But anyway, if you join the Patreon right now, we will add you to the secret group. We'll give you guys some time to figure it out, and then you can come watch our year in review with Chris Spangle
and the rest of the co-hosts, because they were told it's mandatory to attend this unpaid thing that they.
He's talking about taking 400 and some minutes. That's because you have better roads than your part of the state.
So he always tries to get me to move out here, so he'll like jokingly send me houses.
Why don't you? I know a house on Maplewood right now.
Because
be fit for you.
A, I work in Indianapolis, and B, you
can be downtown in 40 minutes.
See, this is Tom and I have
35
the same hymnal.
if you got a lead slave plate.
You sound just like him. Yeah. No, the
25 years driving to the State House, never been stopped. It's a miracle.
Yeah, I have.
I live within 2 minutes of a Chick-fil-A and 1 minute within a Cracker Barrel, and you guys don't have.
We're working on it.
That's a campaign promise right there.
If you get a Chick-fil-A here, I will personally be mad at you because then I'll lose every time. I'm like, you don't have a Chick-fil-A, man. I'm a silver member of the rewards right now. I eat there 3 times a week. I know the drive-through lady by name. He's like, well, you could go to Muncie. I'm like, that's 35 minutes away, Jeremiah.
Well, Greenfield doesn't even have a Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
No, and I think that's we need to stop talking about it because it's a golden franchise opportunity in Greenfield.
Honestly,
that's Mike Kreider's fault, really.
I have a Zaxby's. I'm a single man. I don't like to cook.
Really?
Do you have a Stacks?
That's
we have a
fake.
Stacks.
You like to cook. I've been to your house.
I do like to cook, yeah, but it gets inconvenient because I got things to read. But
all right, Jeremiah, what are your final thoughts?
On the Patreon thing, Christmas morning or Christmas Eve morning.
That's right.
Fluffy Guffy over here. He is going to be doing a roll with Cade, jiu-jitsu style.
Yeah, it's going to go horrible.
Who gave you a microphone?
I did.
I have no clue.
No, you're not. No. We're going to have a whole conversation about this whole situation on
Chris
the
is our Ace Crosby.
So Christmas Eve morning,
he's just
like
a little
9
bit more
a.m.
pale.
He's going to get his butt kicked for the clicks.
Yeah. I'm just trying to last a minute.
No, you won't. No,
He won't.
You're not even man enough to grow a beard.
He's military trained.
No offense, Jeremiah.
He's military trained.
I belong in the trailer park with the best of them.
Now you got.
Tom, as your give me $1. I'll be your personal advisor. No, don't say anything.
All right. Anyway, we got that coming up next week. Juice in the Morning is joining us on the show, so we're gonna have those guys on.
Chumps.
Those chumps. We picked a fight with them just for the sport of it because that's what we do in this industry.
He said you offered use of the studio, and he goes, honestly though, it's like an hour away, so I don't think we can do it.
And we're gonna charge them.
Right.
We're not free.
No,
we're cheap.
You're pretty cheap.
We're cheap.
We can barely afford the rent as it is,
right?
Let alone someone else
We're
using
scraping by. All right. That's enough of this. We join the Patreon. You'll see the rest of it. And we thank you, Tom, very much for joining us on the show.
You. Merry Christmas.
Merry
Christmas.
Mason says they have a Long John Silver's. Thank you for listening to the Boss Hog of Liberty, which is part of the We Are Libertarians Network. I am Chris Spangle, and I am the founder of this network, and I invite you to listen to all of our shows, which you can find at WeAreLibertarians.com or by searching for these in your podcatcher. The flagship show is the We Are Libertarians podcast, where we apply libertarian principles to current events. The Brian Nichols Show is a conversation amongst Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, as they talk about what is happening in the news. And we have many other podcasts like The Chris Spangle Show, Upward, The Cost, Raw Audio Politics, Miranda's World, and Tad Talk, which is quite a ride. So check all of these out. Go to WeAreLibertarians.com and you can check out all of our great podcasts. Thanks for listening. Thank you for listening to the We Are Libertarians Network. Get our other shows at WeAreLibertarians.com.